Hi, my name is Taylor. I'm one of the registered dietitians at On Point Nutrition, and today we're going to talk all about tips to make your food last longer. So even before you go and pick up the items that you need purchasing, you'll want to take inventory in your fridge. Kind of go through and see what's spoiled, what you might need more of, and take a look around so you can really prepare a grocery shopping list. With less food in the fridge, you get better circulation of the cold air, so things typically last longer that way as well. Then be smart while shopping. If you know you're going to eat a certain item or you're not feeling a certain type of fruit or vegetable, don't buy a lot of that. If you don't think, oh, I'm going to have 3 salads this week, maybe don't buy a large container of lettuce. Just start to think through the meals that you want to have, what is sounding good to you, and that will help you better prepare your shopping list and really what you need to buy so that you're not overbuying and having things spoil too soon. All right, the first food we're going to talk about is leafy greens. So as soon as I open up this container, in order to prevent the contents from getting slimy and gaining moisture, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a dry paper towel inside of the box and store it that way so it soaks up all the moisture. So you're going to put the paper towel in the box like this, close it up and store it in the refrigerator that way, and that's going to keep it fresher for longer. The next item that we're going to talk about is herbs, and with herbs you can kind of treat them like a flower, so putting them in a type of jar with some water is really helpful. So we have some fresh parsley here. All I'm going to do is place them in a jar just like I would have flowers, and then to preserve even more freshness you can take the bag that they came in and you can put it over top and store that in the fridge just like so. Right, next we have berries. So here I have my blueberries and strawberries. If we want to preserve them and keep them fresh without mold, one of the cool things that we can do is add 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water as soon as we get them home, and then let them completely dry before placing them in some sort of container and storing them in your refrigerator. And I just have some distilled white vinegar that I use. So again, for berries, you're going to want to make sure that they're completely dry after washing them in the solution, but then you could place them in a container like so and throw them in your refrigerator. Asparagus is very similar to what we see with the herbs, where if we don't want them to get slimy or flimsy, we can store them in an upright position, sort of like we would do flowers, or again, what we did with the herbs. So to keep them fresh, you're going to want to stick the stem end down into like a cup. And that will keep them fresher for longer if you store them this way. Again, personally, I'm just going to throw the bag right on top. If you want to get even more fancy, you can use the rubber band that they came in. Kind of hold that into place. Avocados are definitely one of the more tricky foods to keep stored properly. Ultimately, if it's not feeling ripe, and you can really tell the ripeness by how squishy the skin is. If it's not ripe yet, you're gonna throw it kind of just in room temperature on your counter, let it get ripe. But as soon as you feel like it's getting pretty ripe and squishy, you're gonna want to store it in the fridge for a longer lasting avocado. Once you have the avocado open, to keep it from browning, sometimes keeping the pit inside of the avocado does help with that as well. Next on our list is bananas. So bananas actually ripen quicker when they're separated from the bunch. So it's recommended to keep them in the bunch for as long as you can until you're ready to eat them. You can also put some foil or plastic wrap on the top of the bunch to keep them from ripening quick as well. If bananas have passed their prime, you can definitely freeze them. And with freezing them, you can use them in smoothies and other types of snacks. And when you are ready to freeze the bananas, you're gonna wanna peel them and cut them into smaller sections. Place them on a cookie sheet or some sort of baking pan, pretty far separated from one another just so they don't stick together during the freezing process. And then once they're frozen after a few hours, you can combine them and put them in some sort of bag or storage container. So bread. Some people wonder if it's better to keep it at room temperature or in the fridge for maximum freshness. And we're here to kind of settle that debate. Bread is best kept fresh at room temperature in its sealed container, but if you feel like it's going past the expiration date or the date that it said it was best used by, go ahead and throw it in the freezer, and that will keep it fresher for longer as well. Most nut milks have some sort of label on the packaging that tells what it should be used by. This one says use within 14 days of opening, so that is that particular brand. If you're not drinking enough nut milk, that would be worth this entire container. It can be helpful to make nut milk at home using a machine like the Nutter, so you can only make a certain amount, like a cup if you need it for a recipe, without wasting an entire container of nut milk. While we don't typically think of dry goods to have an expiration date, they do. So things like pasta and rice do have a time when they go bad. It's best to keep them in a sealed container until you're ready to use them. And if I were to open up this bag and only want to use half of the pasta, I would just place it in another secure container to make sure that it has optimized freshness. So another thing that's helpful when maximizing the freshness of your foods is if you ever cook something and you notice that you put it in the fridge right when it's warm, you'll see some condensation forming on the containers that you might put it in. That is actually causing your food to spoil quicker. So a helpful tip is to let that food cool before you place it in the refrigerator, and that'll ensure that you're not getting that condensation layer. So when to freeze. Most prepared foods are going to last in the refrigerator for about 3 to 5 days. So if you think you're not going to eat the food within that time frame, or it's been that time and they're still in the refrigerator, I would transfer them into the freezer. There are items like super cubes where you can store different types of pastas and soups and other leftovers in the freezer super easily and just pop them out when you're ready to go. We also have an affiliate link for super cubes, and I'll link that in the bio as well. And that way you're storing things in the freezer for when you're ready to use them, and you can pull them out and thaw them. So when you're feeling like you're ready to use all these tips, go ahead and dive into our member portal, look at all the recipes, and definitely get to cooking. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys soon.